The last day of school. The last day of school always carried a strange energy. Children ran out of the gates as if freedom itself waited beyond the fence. Parents smiled, relieved that the daily pressure of schedules and homework was finally over. When I saw my son Ethan walking toward me that afternoon, he looked like everyone else. Normal. That was what scared me later. His backpack hung loosely on one shoulder. His steps were slow but steady. When he reached me, he gave a small smile. "Ready for the holiday?" I asked. He nodded. That was all. At the time, I didn't think anything of it. Ethan had never been the expressive type. Since his father passed away 3 years earlier, he had learned to keep his emotions folded neatly inside himself. We walked home together, the sun warm, the street loud with laughter. I remember thinking that life, at least for that moment, felt calm. I didn't know that was the last peaceful walk we would take for a long time. Who my son was. Ethan was 13 years old. He wasn't weak, but he wasn't aggressive either. He lived in that quiet middle space that often gets ignored. Teachers liked him because he caused no trouble. Other children overlooked him because he didn't demand attention. At home he was gentle. He helped his younger sister with homework without being asked. He cleaned his plate and stacked it neatly in the sink. When he spoke, he chose his words carefully. After his father died, Ethan had changed. Not in a loud way. He simply learned how to survive by staying invisible. I thought that made him safe. I was wrong. The first week of holiday. The first week of the school holiday passed quietly. Too quietly. Ethan stayed in his room most of the day. I told myself he was enjoying the freedom. Teenagers like privacy. That's what people say. He woke up late. Sometimes he skipped breakfast entirely. When I reminded him to eat, he nodded but barely touched his food. "How are you feeling?" I asked one morning. "Fine, Mom," he replied. But his eyes stayed on the table. At night, I heard him walking around his room long after midnight. Slow footsteps. Back and forth. Back and forth. It sounded like a trapped animal. The feeling I ignored. Mothers have instincts. That uncomfortable tightening in the chest. That feeling that something isn't right even when everything looks normal. Mine whispered to me constantly. But I ignored it. I told myself I was projecting my fears onto my child. Life had already been hard for us. I didn't want to imagine another problem. So I chose comfort over truth. I regret that choice every day. The hoodie. The hoodie appeared during the second week. At first it seemed harmless. Teenagers wear hoodies. That's normal. But Ethan wore it every day. Even when the heat became unbearable. Even when sweat soaked through the fabric. Even when we stayed indoors. Long sleeves. Hood pulled low. "Why don't you wear a t-shirt?" I asked gently. "I like this," he said. His voice was flat. One afternoon I reached for his arm without thinking. He flinched so hard he knocked over a chair. "I'm sorry," he said quickly, stepping back. That reaction stayed with me. The blood. Laundry day changed everything. I was folding clothes when I noticed a dark stain on Ethan's sleeve. At first I thought it was paint. Or dirt. Then I touched it. It was stiff. Bright. Blood. My hands began to shake. I sat down on the bed holding the shirt, staring at it like it might explain itself. I didn't confront him immediately. Fear taught me patience. That night I barely slept. The question. The next morning I waited until the house was quiet. I placed the shirt on the table between us. "Ethan," I said softly, "can you tell me what happened here?" He stared at the fabric. His shoulders stiffened. For a moment I thought he would lie. That he collapsed. The breakdown. Ethan slid down onto the floor and began to cry. Not loudly. Not dramatically. His body shook as if holding himself together required more strength than he had left. "I didn't want you to know," he whispered. That sentence broke something inside me. I knelt beside him and held him, feeling how thin he had become, how fragile. "It's okay," I said. "You're safe." Even as I said it, I wasn't sure it was true. The first confession. "It started before school ended," Ethan said between breaths. There were older boys from a nearby estate. Boys he didn't know personally but had seen around. At first they followed him home, calling his name, laughing when he ignored them. Then they tested him. Blocking his path. Taking his bag. Demanding his phone just to see it. He tried to avoid them. Took different routes. Stayed close to crowds. It didn't work. When school ended, the holiday changed everything. No teachers. No uniforms. No witnesses. They became bold. They cornered him behind abandoned buildings. Forced him to kneel. Made him apologize to strangers for things he didn't do. They laughed while filming him. They called it training. My son said the word like it tasted bitter. The threat. Then came the threat. One of them leaned close to his ear and whispered, "If you tell anyone, you won't live to see school again." They said it calmly. Like a promise. Ethan believed them. Fear wrapped itself around his life, tightening every day. Our home changes. After that confession, nothing felt the same. Ethan stopped going outside completely. He checked the locks repeatedly. He jumped at every sound. Sometimes I caught him staring at the door as if expecting someone to break in. Our home stopped feeling like a shelter. It felt like a cage. Asking for help. I went to the police. They listened politely. Asked questions. Took notes. They promised to look into it. The school told me they would act when term resumed. When term resumes. As if my child could pause his fear until then. The bullies adapt. The bullying didn't stop. It evolved. They stopped touching him. Instead they humiliated him. Messages from unknown numbers. Threats written in places he would see. Silent watching from across the street. Psychological pain leaves no bruises. Just scars. The night I almost lost him. One night I woke up and realized the bathroom light was on. I found Ethan sitting on the floor. A razor lay beside him. But close enough to steal my breath. I dropped beside him and pulled him into my arms. I held him until the sun rose. That night fear changed into something else. Resolve. The morning after. Morning came quietly. Too quietly for a house that had almost lost a child. Ethan slept on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, his face pale but peaceful for the first time in weeks. I sat at the dining table with a cup of cold tea, staring at the wall. Fear had ruled our home long enough. Waiting had nearly killed my son. I realized something that morning. Help was not coming fast enough. So I made a decision that would change everything. If the world refused to protect my child, I would. No more permission. I stopped asking for approval. No more waiting for school to reopen. No more polite follow-ups with police desks that never called back. I took time off work. I canceled plans. I rearranged my life around one goal. Understanding exactly who was destroying my son. And how. Revenge, I would learn, doesn't begin with anger. It begins with clarity. Watching without being seen. I started small. I changed the routes Ethan once walked. I stood at distances that didn't attract attention. I learned the rhythms of the neighborhood like a language. Who gathered where? Who moved together? Who watched instead of walked? It didn't take long. Bullies are rarely invisible. They're just ignored. The faces. I saw them. The boys Ethan had described. Older. Louder. Confident in the careless way of people who've never faced consequences. They laughed in groups. They leaned against walls like the world owed them space. One of them glanced at me once. Then dismissed me. That was their first mistake. Evidence is power. I bought a small camera. Nothing dramatic. Nothing illegal. I learned how to use my phone properly. Time stamps. Clear angles. Backup storage. I documented patterns. Harassment messages sent at the same times every night. The same boys appearing near our street without reason. The same silent stares meant to intimidate. Fear thrives in darkness. My son doesn't know. I didn't tell Ethan what I was doing. Not yet. He was healing slowly. Therapy had begun. His sister never left his side. He needed safety. I would carry the burden alone. Revenge, I learned, is quieter when the innocent don't have to participate. Connecting the threads. Patterns became names. Names became families. Families became addresses. The boys weren't untouchable kings of the street. They were sons. Students. Children hiding behind neglect and arrogance. And arrogance leaves fingerprints everywhere. The first crack. I made no threats. I simply let certain information move where it needed to go. Anonymous tips. Clear recordings. Screenshots that told stories better than words. The police called me back. This time their voices were different. Concerned. Alert. Interested. Pressure had begun. The bullies feel it. The boys changed. Their laughter faded. Their gatherings grew smaller. Their confidence cracked at the edges. They looked over their shoulders now. Fear is unfamiliar to those who only cause it. An unfamiliar fear is terrifying. Silence becomes loud. The messages stopped. The watching stopped. Then came something new. Confusion. They didn't know what had changed, but they knew something had. That uncertainty worked better than any confrontation. The school returns. When term resumed, I walked into the school prepared. Documents in hand. Evidence organized. Timeline precise. No raised voice. No tears. Just truth laid neatly on a desk. The administration went silent. Silence, I noticed, always comes before action. Consequences find them. Meetings were called. Parents summoned. Statements taken. The boys denied everything at first. Then the videos played. Truth has a way of standing upright when lies collapse. Fifth. Ethan noticed the change before I told him. They don't look at me anymore, he said one afternoon. His voice wasn't hopeful. It was cautious. Healing is careful like that. The conversation. I finally told him. Not everything. Just enough. I stopped waiting, I said. I chose you. He didn't cry. He leaned into me. And for the first time since the holiday began, his body didn't feel tense. The quiet victory. Revenge didn't explode. It didn't scream. It whispered. It showed up in court notices. In school records. In boys who learned, too late, that power without accountability is fragile. Most importantly, my son slept through the night. And that was victory enough. The bully's final consequences. Ethan's slow rebuilding of confidence. The emotional cost of revenge. A powerful, reflective ending suitable for YouTube narration. Just say the word. Consequences don't arrive all at once. Justice doesn't crash through the door. It knocks. One meeting led to another. One report triggered the next step. The boys were suspended pending investigation. Not expelled. Not yet. Some people called it leniency. I called it the beginning. Because once the truth enters a system, it never leaves unchanged. Parents. I met their parents. Some were defensive. Some were shocked. One mother cried harder than I did. I didn't know, she kept saying. And I believed her. That was the most painful part. Realizing how often cruelty grows unnoticed in ordinary homes. Still, understanding didn't erase damage. It only explained it. When the masks fall. One boy broke first. He admitted everything. The filming. The threats. The plan to own someone weaker because it made them feel powerful. That confession unraveled the rest. Bullies are brave together. Alone, they are just frightened children facing consequences for the first time. The legal line. The police reopened the case formally. Harassment. Threats. Coercion. Nothing dramatic enough for headlines. But enough to follow them. Records don't scream. They wait. Ethan goes back. The day Ethan returned to school, I walked him to the gate. His hands shook. So did mine. But he walked in. That mattered more than anything else. A different school day. No one touched him. No one laughed. No one blocked his path. Silence followed him like a respectful distance. Fear had changed sides. The bullies fall. 2 boys were transferred out. One was placed on probation through juvenile services. Another was suspended long-term after additional complaints surfaced. Complaints that had been buried before ours gave others courage. Revenge didn't isolate them. It exposed them. The cost I didn't expect. At night, when everything was quiet, guilt visited me. Not regret. Guilt. Because revenge, even quiet revenge, takes something from the person who carries it. I became sharper. More watchful. Less trusting. Protecting a child changes a parent forever. Therapy is not a straight line. Ethan improved. Then slipped. Then improved again. Healing wasn't heroic. It was messy. Some days he laughed. Some days he couldn't get out of bed. Both were victories. The question he asked. One evening Ethan looked at me and said, "Why did they pick me?" I didn't answer immediately. Then I said the truth. "Because you were kind. And they mistook kindness for weakness." He nodded. I saw something shift. Finding his voice. Ethan joined a small after-school club. Nothing competitive. Nothing loud. Just a place where he could exist without being hunted. He spoke more. Not much. But enough. The apology that came too late. One of the boys approached him months later. No crowd. No cameras. "I'm sorry," he said. Ethan didn't forgive him. He didn't fight him either. He walked away. That was strength. The house feels like home again. The lock stayed locked but not checked obsessively. The lights went off at night. Laughter returned cautiously at first, then freely. Trauma leaves echoes. But echoes fade. What revenge really was. I finally understood something. This was never about destroying those boys. It was about reclaiming my son's life. Revenge was just the language the world understood when kindness failed. The holiday ends. The school holiday that nearly broke us ended quietly. No fireworks. No dramatic closure. Just survival. And survival, I learned, is the bravest ending of all. Ethan at 14. A year passed. Ethan grew taller. Stronger. He smiled more easily. The shadows didn't disappear. But they no longer controlled him. What I would tell other parents. Don't wait. Don't assume silence means safety. Listen to behavior more than words. And if the world moves too slowly, move for your child. The boys we never saw again. I heard bits of their stories later. Different schools. Different paths. Different struggles. I didn't celebrate. I just hoped they learned. The last walk. One afternoon, Ethan walked home with me again. Just like that last day of school. The sun was warm. The street was loud. This time he talked. And laughed. The end that matters. People think revenge ends with punishment. It doesn't. It ends when fear loosens its grip. When a child sleeps peacefully. When a parent can finally breathe. My son survived the holiday. And so did I.